Conversations with Azu Ishekwele.
The bodies of slain Nigerian soldiers in Okuama Delta states were returned and buried at the National Military Cemetery. The last of what happened or what transpired in Okuama may not be known. And this forms the basis of our discussion on conversations with Azu, or deepening the conversation, our interactive segment of conversation with Azu, which is published on the back page of Leadership newspaper every Friday. Azu, the writer of the column, is here with me to discuss this subject that has held Nigerians' breath for many weeks gone now. That was the killing of 17 soldiers in Okuama Delta State. Azu, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me again, Jimmy.
Yes, just like I said, the real story of what happened may not really be known for a long time to come. What do you think?
You're correct about that because investigations are still on. I think only before we came into the studio for this program, the Defense Headquarters announced that some persons
have been arrested.
Yes, published the pictures of some wanted persons. So obviously investigations are still ongoing. We hope anyway that these investigations will go on as quickly and as expeditiously, but obviously as thoroughly as possible, so that justice really can be served. Memories of the fallen heroes, those soldiers, and also to innocent members of that same community who may unfortunately have also fallen victim of the aftermath of that very brutal attack on the soldiers.
Killing the commanding officer of a battalion is tantamount to a declaration of war. Do you think Okuama community has created a monster for the foreseeable future? It's
sad what actually happened there, and very, very sad indeed. The manner in which it was not just the killing, but the killing was bad enough. The manner in which the killing was carried out was reprehensible. But unfortunately, until the investigations have been concluded, we would not know exactly who the perpetrators are. As things stand now, obviously, the entire community is bearing the brunt of what's obviously the act of some persons in that community. I'd like to believe that they are peace-loving, law-abiding members of the community who utterly regret the outcome of what happened on the 14th of March. But where we are now is for the investigations, for the government and the military authorities to conclude the investigations so that all those who are found to have been responsible for the brutal murder of the soldiers can be held to account for.
Your article does indicate that there are warlords rich, strong and powerful, well armed in the Niger Delta, where the soldiers caught between serving different goals. And has the state lost the monopoly of force? I mean, the Nigerian state.
Let me say, first of all, that private armies in conflict situations is not new to Nigeria. Of course, the most current, even though it's a controversial one, is the Wagner Group. But there are all sorts of, even in America's war in Iraq and in the Middle East and a number of places, there are private armies that are involved in some of these conflicts.
So it's not first its story, the day of the Jackal.
Right, yeah, so it's not but there are complications and there are structures and systems of managing this sort of intervention that, in my view, appear not to have gone too well in the evolution of our own experience here. Because I also, as I hinted in the article, there are suspicions that some private, well-armed private security group that may or may not have been involved in the conflict, that their boat was used in some of this exercise, and that may have been passions. That doesn't justify the outcome of war. But again, I think it speaks to the deeper, more fundamental issue of the role that we would like our military to play in conflicts. Okay, I don't remember the last time we had this scale of brutal murders. Of course, people talk about
Zakibian
and then Zakibian, but I mean that's not the kind of these are not the kind of cycles that you want repeated, especially at peace times. So the country, as part of the investigation, also has to ask itself fundamental questions about the role that we would like our military to play, and whether our military is sufficiently funded, manned, and equipped to play that role. If you compare it with some of the private armies, as I said, they are far more better funded and far more resourced than the military. And so when you find often that when the military is involved in situations like that, there are all kinds of interests that they have to balance in addition to maintaining the peace, which they obviously have been dragged into.
And quickly, President Bola Tinubu was at the funeral yesterday. Do you think it was just symbolism, or was this something significant?
Whether I think it was both symbolic and significant, in the sense that in the last administration we had a number of such incidents, about 8 or 9 of them. I think it was only one or so that President Buhari turned up at them. We're not saying that these things should be happening so that the president should be turning up, but I think it's both symbolic that he was there and significant as well, not only by his presence, but also some of the attempts, some of the things he said, that the government will do in order to bring some sort of succor to the family of the bereaved. But no amount of, it's good, but no amount of reparations or restitution can bring back the dead. And so we do need to be extremely careful. And this should be, for me, a teachable moment. It should be a moment when we sit down, reflect, and see what lessons we can really learn in terms of the role we would like our military to play in managing significant conflicts like this. If this is what it has come to, then the military has to be sufficiently equipped and manned to discharge that role. Look at the leader, the commanding officer of the 181 amphibious, went to see his mother only 2 weeks before the incident, and he had lost his brother in Katsina, to banditry. His father had died before that. He had lost his sister and his sister-in-law. Just how much. Why do we want to keep going through? And of course, if you also look at Okuama as well, I'm sure, as I said earlier on, that there are people who have been caught up in this conflict who know absolutely nothing about it. And the Okoloba side itself, I'm sure that they themselves may have some. So, how long are we going to go through this sort of cycle of violence? Unfortunately, again, as I said, the reason why we need to not compound 2 wrongs with a third one is because if we do not restrain and measure intervention, then we are back again to what happened in Asaba during the Civil War, which also went to radicalizing the entire region, the way innocent civilians were killed, all went into radicalizing the region. So it's a moment that we need to pause, reflect, and ask ourselves fundamental questions about the role that our soldiers, if we want our military to be involved, need to play, and also what communities need to be aware of, and private armies and government in this very intricate relationship.
For more of this, what you just heard, visit our website, azuishekwene.com. For new information you probably have not heard anywhere else about the happenings in Okuama, and besides other articles you will find. Thanks for coming on the show, Azu.
Thanks for having me once again. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Conversations with Azu Ishekwene.